We've seen some of the manufacturers wake up and say, hey, marketplaces are kind of a big deal. They're actually operating in a lead role, right? They're actually saying, yes, Tiger, let's co-lead this round with you. Amazon says, I want to get into secondhand clothing. Let me go buy Vestiaire in Europe. Now you've got some downside protection. Fashion marketplaces are, really coming into their own. We've talked a lot about Farfetch, the number one leader. We've seen, the whole ethos of winner take all. The show is right how these two worlds, tech monopolies and incumbents, are battling it out. And how can we bring more parity to the extremely kind of unbalanced nature of tech monopolies in today's environment. And so what we've started to see in luxury and in fashion is we've seen some of the manufacturers wake up and say, hey, marketplaces are kind of a big deal, kind of like the next big distribution channel for us. I should have a stake in that next big distribution channel called Marketplace. We saw Richemont, which owns a bunch of different luxury brands, put a bunch of money into Farfetch. They launched a JV with Farfetch in China. Richemont sells a lot of jewelry, a lot of luxury goods in China. And then also, put money into Farfetch, holding Farfetch proper. We've also seen the Kering Group, which owns a number of other luxury brands like Balenciaga and others. They had put money into First Dibs years ago. First Dibs is like the number 3 trailing sneaker marketplace. But then recently, Kering put money into GOAT, the number 2 sneaker marketplace that Foot Locker had put money into a few years ago. And we've also now seen Kering put money into a company called Vestiaire. So, we've talked a lot about these kind of luxury goods marketplaces, Farfetch, The Real, I'm going to come to them in a second. You've got the sneaker marketplaces, you've got watch marketplaces, and now you have, and not now, but you also have secondhand clothing textile marketplaces. These aren't as much around luxury. Poshmark recently IPO'd. I think their average sale price is like anywhere from $20 to $30, right? It's a very different price point of consumer. Vestiaire is a competitor to them in Europe. Vestiaire Collective here raising $216 million for its secondhand fashion platform. The company raised $216 million and has reached, unicorn status at over $1 billion valuation. Now, the interesting thing with this here is that Kering Group has taken a sizable stake in Vestiaire. Kering is leading the round along with Tiger Global. Kering now owns a 5% stake of Vestiaire. So simple math, that means these guys wrote a $50 million check into Vestiaire. So they're doing a lot of deals here, right? They are aggressively pursuing marketplaces. That's clear. And they're actually operating in a lead role, right? They're actually saying, yes, Tiger, let's co-lead this round with you, as opposed to being a follower on the round, right? These guys are really leaning in and saying, we need to put dollars to work in marketplace. Not only do we need to control the distribution channel, but this is also a defensive move in a couple ways. One, what you don't want to have happen is what just happened to the banks with Plaid. So we saw Plaid work with 200 plus banks, that interconnected infrastructure. All the banks are connecting to, all this data going through Plaid. Visa tries to buy Plaid for $5 billion. The banks hadn't taken a position in Plaid. Visa is a platform company, actually platform monopoly status, one of the oldest platforms actually, and obviously in Plaid. Great decision by Visa to buy Plaid. Because none of the banks put enough money into Plaid as an investor, they didn't have any rights as a defensive mechanism to say, yeah, Plaid, I want you to be successful. I want you to grow. I want to use your service because you're great. But I don't want a tech monopoly to buy you. That could include Visa, MasterCard, but also obviously a Google, Apple, Amazon, etc. That I think is another key part. Not only can incumbents, by investing in up and coming dominant platform businesses, use that to their advantage for revenue synergies, for other strategic synergies, But it's also a defensive mechanism to protect against the scenario where, in this case for Vestiaire, if Amazon says, yeah, Amazon luxury just isn't working out as well as we had thought, or if Amazon says, I want to get into secondhand clothing, let me go buy Vestiaire in Europe. Now you've got some downside protection, because what would be even worse is for these large tech monopolies where doing $1 billion acquisition is literally just a rounding error to them at this point. Now you've got some protection against that. So it's another reason why I really like to look at what's going on in fashion as an example for what I think we're going to start to see in many other industries and verticals, right? Incumbents, up and coming tech startups coming together, sharing synergies, both having revenue lift and putting capital to work in the startup business, because you can make good money on your investment, but you can also get some rights to protect against those adverse scenarios where that large tech monopoly comes in to just buy that dominant platform in a given vertical. That's basically the key growth strategy of these tech monopolies, right? Everyone complains about Facebook buying Instagram. It's the same thing, right? They just come in, they buy a business for a few $1 billion. That's the growth mechanism. That's really how you see tech monopolies at that platform conglomerate status roll into new adjacent platform businesses. It's not really a build from scratch strategy for the tech monopolies. They're too big. They really can't go build new businesses from scratch. It's so hard to do. So hard to do in general, let alone with all the inertia and all the other stuff going on inside of these big companies. M&A is really the key way that these tech monopolies expand into other verticals. So by investing in a Vestiaire, you're just taking another chip off the table that a tech monopoly can use to roll into these types of industries. So Vestiaire is a leading player. The other one in Europe is called Vinted. Vinted and Vestiaire are really the two top players there. In the US, then you really have Poshmark and ThredUp in this kind of secondhand fashion, retail environment. Very interesting space. The interesting news on Farfetch and The RealReal is you're also now starting to see that winner-take-all dynamic in luxury goods. So different than the secondhand space that I'm talking about here. Farfetch came out with their earnings here. Farfetch reaches profitability after 12 years. I mean, that's kind of what it takes, right? You have aggressive growth. You're reinvesting in growth. The luxury e-commerce platform's revenues in 2020 increased 64%. $1.7 billion. They've done a lot of really interesting things. Again, platforms they're not mutually exclusive. You can have platform revenue and you can have linear revenue. Farfetch has acquired key brands like Off-White brand, which I think was the former designer from Louis Vuitton, I think. So, they have their own proprietary brands that Farfetch is controlling. And obviously they have the marketplace dynamic, but revenue rose 64% with gross merchandise value exceeding $3 billion, up about 49% year over year. Their revenues are actually growing faster than the GMV, which means I think that speaks to this hybrid, right? Linear and marketplace dynamic. Where you're grabbing more revenue by selling more products in a linear kind of reseller from balance sheet model. What this graph is showing is that for manufacturers, this is a graph to woo manufacturers. This is also kind of this is really kind of the marketplace end state is you use third-party stores and sellers to get traction. That's actually what helped Farfetch get a lot of that initial traction is they went to these boutique retailers and helped attract the boutique retailers to sell. What this graph is showing, this is a graph to woo manufacturers. We've seen Amazon do this, right? Where they woo the third-party sellers, the distributors, the retailers to come sell, but they're the intermediary step for the marketplace to then cut out that middleman. I know it's a taboo word, and then go to the actual manufacturer. That's kind of the marketplace playbook many times. Not all the time, but many times. So what this is saying is, hey, on the left, hey, manufacturers, if you go and you sell your products to wholesalers and distributors, right, and it goes to the traditional retail channel, look at how much margin you're losing. But if you go through the Farfetch channel, right, brand revenue, see here, they've got brand revenue in the lighter shades of blue. you will keep more of your margin, because what are you doing? You're cutting out the intermediary, either a distributor, a retailer, variety of different folks that are buying and reselling those goods from the manufacturer. So you can see them, they've reached the stage, right, where they're now trying to go directly to the manufacturer. It's a critical kind of evolution in the business. On the other hand, though, RealReal struggling. RealReal is a much smaller US-based far-fetched luxury good competitor. They actually had a decline in Q4. Basically, what you're seeing with RealReal is you're starting to see the discrepancy between the number one and the number two player. Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.